They said no one escaped. They said no one loved behind barbed wire, but they didn't know her. And they didn't know what love is willing to do, even in a concentration camp. Even when everything is taken from you, this isn't a fairy tale. This is real. And it begins in the bitter cold of Moldova, in a prison camp where survival was rare and hope was even rarer. She was 40, a Jewish woman arrested and deported like so many others. No trial, no mercy, just a number. In the camp, men were kept on one side, women on the other, separated by a fence made of rusted wire and cold silence. But even in that hell, something stirred. Each day, she walked to the fence, and across it, she found eyes waiting for her, hopeful, still alive inside. His name was never shouted. She was 2. Names could be dangerous, but he was 20 young. And soon, they started with glances, then whispers. They imagined more. Then full conversations through the fence, quiet enough to avoid the guards, loud enough to fill the silence inside them. She had seen more death than love. He had seen more fear than future. They made a decision, but together, dreaming. She shared stories of music in Bucharest. He spoke of maps and rivers routes burned into his memory. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were planning, and then they would escape. Winter came hard, the kind of cold that cracks your skin and your will, but that's when they noticed something. Each week, a truck entered the camp with logs for the fire, big logs stacked in the back, with just enough space between. One night he whispered, "We could hide there." She hesitated. If they were caught, there would be no second chance. But they had already risked everything for love. Why stop now? The day came. They didn't eat. They didn't sleep. They waited in the shadows. And when the truck stopped inside the gates, they ran. Quietly, quickly. He climbed in first, pulling her up. They slid between the logs, pressing themselves into splinters in silence. The truck moved. They held their breath. Minutes passed. Hours. They didn't know where they were going. They only knew they couldn't go back. When the truck slowed, they peeked through cracks in the wood. Farmland, no guards. Open space. They jumped, bruised, bleeding, but alive and free. They didn't have supplies, no food, no clothes beyond their prison rags, but they had one thing, a stolen atlas. Before the escape, he'd taken it from a guard's quarters. They had torn out the pages they needed. Maps of Moldova, Romania, Bucharest. They weren't just running. They had a destination, and they had each other. They traveled by foot, by night, mostly. They stole bread when they had to. Hid in barns, waded through rivers. One night, when she collapsed from exhaustion, he carried her. When he got sick, she sang him lullabies from childhood to keep him warm. It wasn't romantic. It was raw. It was survival through love, and slowly, mile by mile, they made their way south. They arrived in Bucharest just before spring. The war hadn't ended, but their suffering had. They changed their names. They built a small business. They rebuilt their bodies, their hearts, their lives, and eventually, they built a home. A beautiful, sunlit home with bookshelves, music, and laughter. The woman who once whispered through a fence, and the man who once dreamed through the cracks of a log, truck lived out their lives not in fear, but in freedom. Because sometimes the most powerful escape is the one made together.